Hey guys, Sean with Long Honeymoon here, coming at you today with a special guide to the GROS VENTRE campground in Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. GROS VENTRE, spelled GROS VENTRE, pronounced GROS VENTRE. Why am I doing a special guide for this one campground? Well, GROS VENTRE is one of the largest campgrounds, if not the largest, in the entire national park system. And if you are visiting Grand Teton National Park and or Yellowstone, there is a pretty good chance you're going to end up at GROS VENTRE. My goal with this video is to help you have a better stay at GROS VENTRE. If you're bringing an RV there and or if you're tent camping there. It's also to help the campground staff have a better season working at GROS VENTRE. Because if we're all on the same page before we arrive, then everything's going to go so much more smoothly and we're all going to have that much more fun.
2 thumbs up.
So let's talk a little bit about what makes GROS VENTRE unique. First of all, it's location, location, location.
Well, it's true we do this hike pretty much every year, but it's easy to see why.
It's not necessarily the most beautiful campground you're ever going to see in your life, but it is located square in the middle of the GROS VENTRE wilderness, a very beautiful patch of land in Wyoming that is adjacent to a river, the GROS VENTRE River. The river is important because the river attracts local wildlife, including moose. There is a strong possibility you're going to see moose when you go to GROS VENTRE. That's always very exciting. Also, GROS VENTRE is an older campground, and the way it's laid out, the campsites are reasonably spread apart. There is a lot of mature growth in terms of the trees and the bushes and so forth around there, and it just feels very lush, quiet out there. At night you can hear the nearby river if your campsite happens to be located near the river. More on that later. You also have excellent proximity to Grand Teton National Park. So if you want to take a short car ride, maybe even bike ride, you can head over to the park and take in some of the most amazing mountain views that you will ever enjoy in your life. And if you want to go into town,
there it is, right there. Low ho.
The charming town of Jackson Hole, Wyoming is a mere 15 to 20 minute drive away. And in Jackson, you're going to find just a fantastic little Wyoming town. So you can use GROS VENTRE as kind of a home base to explore that wonderful part of our country. Over the years, we have seen many changes at GROS VENTRE. For many years, the campground was unpaved with no electricity. That has partially changed.
Somebody did a great job paving this entire campground. Our campsite was quite level, and you got the big spacious parking pad, but it's made a big difference just in navigating through the campground, having it fully paved. It seemed for many years this campground was unpaved.
Now, back in my day, kiddies, we used to be able to just show up at GROS VENTRE, go grab a campsite, and then come back and tell the staff where we'd decided to set up for the night. Can't do that anymore. It's important to know that right now, as of the making of this video, all sites in GROS VENTRE are reservation only. So the only way you can have a site at GROS VENTRE is to go through recreation.gov, which is the National Park Service's official campground reservation website. And here's the catch. If you show up at GROS VENTRE and you do not have a reservation, you're going to have to log on to your phone or whatever internet service you have and attempt to get a reservation there on the spot. First of all, the reservations are filling up so quickly, there's a strong chance you're just going to be locked out completely and will not be able to get a reservation just on spur of the moment. Secondly, Cellular service is very limited in the Gros Ventre campground. Unless this has changed, there is a pretty strong chance you're going to show up, and if you don't have a reservation, you're not going to be able to get a decent cell signal on your phone, so you're not going to be able to access the internet. You're going to have to turn your rig around and tow it somewhere where you can get a decent cellular signal.
Campground staff cannot make the reservation for you. You must do this yourself.
So please already have your recreation.gov account set up and already have your reservation booked before you arrive.
The recreation.gov site not only contains a detailed map of the campground, it has photos of each individual campsite, so you will know exactly what you are getting.
Now, when you pull into the campground, there is one long central entrance to the campground, and as you're pulling into the campground with your RV rig, on your left you will see the dump station, and it is the only dump station in the entire massive campground. On the right you will see the campground office, which may or may not be open to public traffic depending upon the policy at the time. And depending on whether or not there's a pandemic afoot, you may be able to go inside the little house that's located there to handle the check-in process, or they may be doing the check-in process just outside on the asphalt parking in front of that little house area. This area can bottleneck. So again, ideally you want to have all your reservation stuff ready to go when you arrive at Gros Ventre, because that will make things much easier on you and on the staff. Once you pull into the campground, you pull over to the right and park your rig in a designated parking area. You can finish the check-in procedure with the staff and then head out to your campsite.
There are a total of 7 different loops in the Gros Ventre campground. Each loop is slightly different in terms of location and amenities, and some loops have very different rules with regard to generator usage.
Certain loops in Gros Ventre do not allow generator usage. You need to make certain before you book your reservation, if you want to use a generator, that you are in a generator loop. Otherwise, you're going to have to tow your rig over to the amphitheater when you need to top off your batteries.
So here's a look at our campsite in the no generator F loop here in Gros Ventre Campground in Grand Teton National Park. It's a nice wide gravel site, although the road through the campground is paved. The site itself is gravel, and there's plenty of parking for both your RV and your tow vehicle. And then tucked away to the side, behind the site, we have a wooden picnic table, a bear box, and a fire pit. And this is actually a nice little area back here. You can retreat to this forested area, enjoy your campfire, and hang out with your friends right behind your campsite. And of course, it's surrounded by all of these beautiful trees.
One of the loops now has electric service, which is a big change that happened in recent years. In some loops, generators are not allowed. In other loops, generators are allowed, and there are specific generator hours. They're quite generous, arguably too generous, depending upon what kind of generator you and or your neighbor happens to be toting.
In loops A, B, and C, generators can be run from 8 a.m. all the way to 10 p.m. 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. are quiet hours.
Many people ask which loop is the best, and I can truthfully say we've stayed in pretty much every loop at Gros Ventre, and we've had great experiences in all the different loops.
There's not any one loop that has an advantage in terms of wildlife viewing.
First of all, you can't really predict where the wildlife are going to appear because it changes from season to season. And indeed, some seasons you'll have a lot more wildlife than other seasons. We have seen moose in A loop, B loop, and C loop for sure. The moose will come into the campground usually early in the morning. The reason for that is, again, the location of the Gros Ventre River.
Although no campsites are positioned directly on the river is a short walk away from each loop. And by the way, I'm told there's some pretty good trout fishing back there.
And the moose typically at night reside in the hills not far away from the campground. So every morning around sunrise, moose will typically wander through the campground on their way to the river. Now, sometimes on their way back up to the hills, they will just plop down under a shade tree and sit in the campground all day long. That's always a lot of fun. You also really need to be cautious. Moose are unpredictable and dangerous, and yes, there is a strong possibility you will see moose in this campground. Now, you can never predict exactly when or where they're going to show up, but they could be in any one of the 7 different loops. And you need to keep a distance of at least 25 yards from any moose that you see. If you're walking through the campground at any time, day or night, you may come upon a moose. And we have certainly had situations where female moose have bedded down for the night in campsites adjacent to our campsite. We have also seen big bull moose. So I can't really say that one loop is necessarily better than another loop. I will say that if you're on the river side of things, you're more likely to hear the flow of the Gros Ventre River at night, which can be very peaceful and relaxing. If you're on, shall we say, the mountain side of things, you're more likely to get a partial Teton view. Now, you will see more Teton views in a loop, which is located at the very end of the campground. You're not getting full-on Teton views because those views are blocked by some hills that are right between you and those Tetons that you so eagerly want to see. There's something to be said for being on the Teton side of things where you can see those partial Teton views, but there's also something to be said to being over closer to the river because those sites get that refreshing, relaxing sound of running water through the river. There's also something to be said for B loop, C loop, because they're more thickly wooded and you get more shade. On the other hand, if you're really relying heavily on solar, you might want to be more on A loop because there's more sunshine in that loop. Bear in mind, the farther you are from the central campground entrance, the longer it's going to take you to get to your campsite and to get back out of the campground. So all the loops are good, and I'm not going to come out and announce that one loop is strongly preferred over another because it really depends upon you. Note that if you choose to stay in a generator loop, some people bring some pretty loud fossil fuel burning generators. And I'm talking about those open frame generators that frankly generate a lot of noise. And yes, we have had situations where people have run those generators quite late into the evening. Frankly, they can really spoil the atmosphere and, spoil your evening by the campfire. So if you really want to avoid the sound of generators, then you may want to look in one of the non-generator loops. On the other hand, if you're staying in a no generator loop, you can't run your generator. Obviously, we carry a generator. We like portable inverter generators. And if you are carrying a generator, please just exercise some common courtesy and be considerate of others with regards to when you use it. Now, for a moment, let's just look at the layout of the Gros Ventre campground. There's a 2-way main road kind of running along the full length of the campground. But once you enter into a specific loop, it's a one-way path through the loop. And it's fairly narrow. So if someone is backing into a campsite or if they're leaving their campsite, at times traffic can be obstructed as they are connecting or disconnecting their camper. The concern here is twofold. If you are waiting on someone to back in or leave a site, be patient and be considerate. And if you are the person in the campsite, act in a timely fashion. Don't take all day because traffic jams can develop. We all understand if you need to finish some things in the amphitheater, you can always tow your rig over there and do so. Yeah. We're good. All good. most of the campsites at Gros Ventre are of the back-end variety. And as we all know, that's a process that can take sometimes 5 or 10 minutes at least. So you need to be patient if you're behind someone who's dealing with those issues. So here's a look at our campsite here in Sea Loop in Gros Ventre Campground, Grand Teton National Park. This is a generator loop, so you are actually free to run a generator until 10 p.m. You can see this loop is paved throughout, so you've got a nice asphalt parking pad upon which we have parked our trusty old Airstream, and to the right of our site we have a bare food storage locker. Really nice feature throughout the Gros Ventre Campground. Pretty much every site seems to have a storage locker. Really anything that you have that a bear might find smells delicious that you have outside should be tucked inside one of these bear safe lockers. And you can use them for all sorts of storage, but keep in mind these are not for garbage. It's really nice that they have these here now, although I personally have never seen a bear here in Gros Ventre. I have seen photos of bears strolling through Gros Ventre, so I know that they're in the area. And of course this is dry camping, no water, no power, no sewer, but occasionally we might top off our fresh water. Behind our site, we have a picnic table, nice metal picnic table built to last, and a very pleasant little campfire area. There is a fire pit, but upon that we have put our solo stove and set out our outdoor living room. Behind our site, we have a lovely view of the bathrooms. But if we ever want to save on water, we can just step back there and not use our own water. So that's kind of nice, actually. Here we have one standard issue American wife.
Standard issue?
No, that's the upgrade, not standard issue. Let me rephrase that. And yeah, it's a really, really beautiful, pleasant site. And if you listen really closely, you might be able to make out the sound of the Gros Ventre River in the background. And you really can at night because the river gets kind of loud in a very pleasant way. Of course, there are a few obvious observations to make here. Fire pits are not trash pits. I think one of the big peeves of campground staff has to do with people disposing of trash in the fire pit. You know, thoughtless people sometimes will leave partially burned trash in the fire pit or dump their cigarette butts into the fire pit. You know, it's really kind of disrespectful to the campground staff. I mean, you wouldn't want to be picking up someone else's trash if you were working at the campground. So just use a little common sense and common courtesy here. Of course, it's always a good idea to double check the bear box. Make sure there's no trash or anything else inside.
Did you check your bear box?
We did.
Okay,
I don't want
good.
you to leave me.
Well, is that a big problem? People leave stuff in bear boxes?
Oh, you wouldn't believe it.
Do not leave trash in the bear storage locker. That has been another significant problem in recent years. People throw trash inside that storage locker and then just drive away on departure day and leave it behind for the campground staff to deal with.
So here we have the trash receptacles of D. So in addition to the trash cans and so forth by the dump station, you can always go to these. And yes, you can recycle your plastic, glass, and metal here.
Now, what about the amenities inside these specific loops? Well, pretty much all the loops have a bathroom, and I should say bathroom, not bathhouse, because there are no showers at Gros Ventre. In these bathroom areas, you will find men's and women's toilets. Here we have a typical bathroom here at the Gros Ventre campground. This building's name is Al. Or actually, I think that's A Loop. A1. Let's take a peek inside the men's room, shall we? It's not exactly the Waldorf Astoria, but it does the job. You got a couple of stalls and a couple of sinks
And remember, this is bear country.
But you will also find typically a gray water dump sink.
Most of these bathrooms have a camper service sink. So this is not a toilet. This is a gray water disposal area. And you should not put any grease, food scraps, or coffee grounds in this sink. You should not wash dishes in this sink. But you can empty gray water here. Bye-bye. And you'll see that next to this bathroom and next to many bathrooms is a freshwater spigot. And this is potable water. You are welcome to fill jerry cans here and bring that water to your RV. Now, just to be clear, you're not really supposed to attach your RV rig to this freshwater spigot. It is intended for use with jerry cans and smaller containers of water, which you can then bring to your RV. Note that these bathrooms are equipped with red water buckets, which are intended to be used to extinguish your campfire. So when it's time to put out the fire, just come over to the bathroom, grab one of these buckets, and you can make sure that it is out.
Most of the sites, if not all the sites, have no water connection whatsoever. So Grovant is all about water management. We carry typically not only a hard plastic jerry can for water, we also have collapsible plastic bags that we will fill with fresh water to keep our RV well stocked. Note that you can stay in Grovant for up to 14 days. If you find yourself beginning to smell a little ripe and you're desperate for a shower, head over to Signal Mountain Campground. You can buy a shower in the public showers there. Another option in town is the Teton County Park and Recreation Center, which you can join for one day. So that's about all you have to know about those bathroom facilities, and I believe they are open 24 hours a day. So if you're really wanting to conserve the usage of water in your RV, you might choose a campsite that's strategically positioned near one of those bathroom buildings. What else is there to know about Grovant? Well, there's this magical area in Grovant called the Dump Station.
So we are here at the Grovant Dump Station, right behind me. You will also notice that there are trash receptacles behind me. So there's one for general trash, there's recycling over here. So if you're gonna be recycling plastic bottles or jugs, please make sure you remove the cap before you put them in the recycling bin. There's also one for propane cylinders, so if you have the little propane cylinders that go on your stove or your outdoor grill, those can be recycled there. But I will tell you, don't wait to toss your trash at the dump station because this trash receptacle fills very quickly. Each loop has their own set of trash receptacles, so I encourage you to empty your trash, take your trash out, take your recyclables out at your individual loop. And that way, this one doesn't get stuffed to the gills.
And in this dump station, there are actually two different dumping station drain areas. This is one of them. It's one-way traffic through this area, and considering the size of most vehicles and RVs these days, only one RV at a time can go through. In other words, if someone is at one of these dump stations, you can't really drive around them and get all the way through the other end of the area. So it can be slow going over here, and that is especially true because the freshwater spigot is one of the slowest.
And if you do the math, we have a 54-gallon freshwater tank in our trailer. So hopefully it's faster than a gallon a minute, but it is definitely a slow process here.
But here at the actual dump station, you have your sewer drain. You also have a water hose which you can use to wash down the area if, for example, your sewer hose breaks while you're emptying your tanks. Ask me how I know.
Our sewer hose broke. First time this has ever happened or I've ever seen it happen. I was simply lifting up the hose and it snapped.
And there is no potable water or drinkable water at these stations. All of the drinkable, potable water comes from one spigot at the end of this dump station, at least at the making of this video. Now, in the future, they may add additional freshwater spigots. For the past 15 years, there has always been one. Now, in years past, typically when you were arriving, you could go through and empty your tanks and top off with fresh water before you occupied your campsite. I'm honestly not sure what the current policy might be with regard to that, because the policy has changed in recent years. These days, you are best advised to arrive with your water tanks already done and ready for camping. As of the making of this video, you must have a reservation to use the dump station. So when you come to the dump station these days, you will be required to have a reservation. So you need to plan in advance when you expect to empty your tanks. A total of 43 RVers can empty their tanks here daily. I'm not going to debate the merits of the dump station reservation policy here in this video. There have absolutely been many times in years past when you would see a half dozen or more RVs lined up to try and get through the dump station. So in that respect, maybe the reservation system for the dump station has some advantages.
Hey guys, we are Sean and Christy. This is Long Honeymoon, and we're joined by a few friends, members of Loloho Nation.
One other area of the Gros Ventre campground that you really should know about is the amphitheater.
Here is the amphitheater, and this year someone has thoughtfully provided a bike rack, but simply walk along the asphalt sidewalk. You will find a short stairway and the seating area of the amphitheater. And you can see you could have a pretty large crowd in this area. Now, from time to time, there will be ranger talks here in the amphitheater. So you can come out here and hear a ranger speak about various aspects of Grand Teton National Park. You can learn more about the park and its wildlife. Also, sometimes events can be held here. The campground was kind enough to allow us to have a Long Honeymoon meetup here a few years ago. And the other thing to know about the amphitheater, for reasons unknown to man, moose seem to really like this area. I'm not sure what it is about the amphitheater, but we have seen many large moose frolicking in this area over the years, especially as the season continues on and the rut begins in full swing. The moose mating season, they will do their courting right here frequently. And we've had some really spectacular moose sightings, believe it or not, in this space. And sometimes they will just bed down here for the day. This is the amphitheater parking lot in the Gros Ventre campground, and it's important for several reasons. First of all, have you noticed anything about this parking lot? Look at the size of the thing. Yes, many RVs can fit in here. So this is used as overflow parking. Certainly if the campground is completely 100% full, I've heard of a couple of people being able to stay here overnight in a pinch. Secondly, if you're staying in a no generator loop, you can actually pull your rig over here and run your generator for a little while to top off your batteries, because generator use is allowed here in the amphitheater parking lot. Thirdly, if you're towing some kind of trailer like a boat or kayaks, you can drop it off over here, and people do that from time to time.
And you know, last year we were having an issue with the axle of our Airstream. We towed over to the amphitheater to have kind of more working space and to be able to work on the problem out in the open. So the amphitheater is a useful space to know about. And one other bonus tip about the amphitheater.
And we even have fresh water over here.
Let's talk briefly about pet policy, and don't shoot the messenger. Quite simply, Gros Ventre Campground is considered to be within Grand Teton National Park, and so the same pet policy applies here. Basically, pets must be on a leash, no dogs on trails, and so forth. And this is done primarily for safety reasons because of the wildlife in the area. You can read the full policy at recreation.gov.
There's your dad. He's right there.
So that wraps up this special look at the Gros Ventre Campground in Grand Teton National Park. Over the years, we've enjoyed so many special experiences in Gros Ventre.
So we're here at Gros Ventre. The snow has begun.
Not only hanging out with the moose, but also hanging out with you guys. B-Loop, yeah, you guys are in C.
We're in C.
For whatever reason, it seems like our videos about that area have really resonated with you guys, and we have met so many of you when we're camping there. It's always a treat. You know, in most of my life, I am fairly anonymous. I can walk around my hometown and nobody pays me the least bit of attention. Nobody knows who I am. But when we go to Gros Ventre, we definitely feel like we are with our kindred spirits there. And you have certainly given us back so much positive energy.
You never know when you might be on the next episode of Long, Long Honeymoon.
That's right.
We really want to thank you for that. Of course, we look forward to meeting many more of you in Gros Ventre in the future. We also want to thank the campground staff at Gros Ventre. We've met many, many great people who have dedicated their time and energy to working in Gros Ventre during the summer season. And we made many great friends there over the years amongst the campground staff. We really appreciate what they do. You know, there was a time many years ago when I worked in Yellowstone National Park, and I know that for most people who work in our national parks, they're doing so because they love the parks. And so anything that we can do to help them have a better working season is appreciated. Thank you once again for tuning in to Long, Long Honeymoon, the longest running honeymoon-inspired RV show on the interwebs. Or so I continue to claim. If you're new to our channel and you like this type of video, please subscribe. We've been doing Long, Long Honeymoon for a long, long time, and we intend to continue. And by the way, if you want to pick up your own Gros Ventre Lo Loho t-shirt, look for the link beneath this video. See you later this year in Gros Ventre.
So here we are, the last morning at Gros Ventre Campground in Grand Teton National Park. It's about 10 a.m. So this is actually the last hour of the season. The campground closes at 11.
You know, life isn't perfect. Nobody's life is perfect. But at times like this, when I find myself in one of the most beautiful places on the planet, at the most beautiful time of year, life could be worse. And I'm just really thankful to be able to have these experiences and share them with you. Bye-bye, Gros Ventre. Until next year, it's been good.
We're at Vinny's North Bay Airstream Repair, and this is our, believe it or not, 2003 Airstream Classic travel trailer. We've had our trailer here at Vinny's not only receiving a thorough cleaning and detailing, but a fresh coat of ceramic glass. This is a new technology that applies a ceramic glass coating on top of the original Airstream clear coat. And the results are nothing short of amazing. Trailer has not only never looked better, it now has this protective coat applied that will make the aluminum more resistant to corrosion, to scratching, and it's going to make it much easier to clean.